Thank you for the one power. I'm blessed to perform it over the past few years at many centers. And I refer to it as the New Thought Anthem, because it really is what it is, right? Yeah, okay. So, good morning, dear hearts, and all you out there in space. Here we go. (1972). I was working as an actor in New York, and I received this card for opening night from a cast member. And I was quite drawn to it because my Lord, look at that. This cat looking at this king of the jungle, this wise soul as lion. And so there was a connection there. And then I was blessed to be introduced to Science of Mind by Dr. Raymond Charles Barker. And I thought, when I look in the mirror, what am I looking at? So I developed this over the years, that morning, night, standing in front of the mirror, rather than looking at, God, the wrinkles and stuff. I talk to God, connected, because that's within me. Okay, so much for that. Jump ahead to Asilomar. Dr. Ernest Holmes would end Asilomar by speaking at the chapel, which became known as Sermons by the Sea. And this particular one was his last in 1959, as he made his transition a year later. But I find this so powerful because he's speaking to us. He's charging us as students of New Thought. So I'd like to share this with you. I would will, wish, and desire, above all things else, that the simplicity and purity of our teaching could never be violated, that straight-line thinking should never depart from the teachings of our practitioners, the instructions of our teachers, our ministers, and understanding of our lay people. This is the most direct impartation of divine wisdom that has ever come to the world, because it incorporates the precepts of Jesus and Emerson and Buddha and all the rest of the wise that have sung about the imprisoned splendor within ourselves and within each other, and have direct contact with it. Here, Dr. Holmes charges us to be the highest and best examples of what it means to be divine beings of light. Perfect God, perfect man, perfect being. That is our charge. So are you on board? So, this wonderful, wonderful book. The thing itself. Excuse me. Truth is the thing itself. God, first cause. The universal creative intelligence and power always presents itself in our lives. Love and law, its foundation. Now, to suppose that the creative intelligence of the universe would create man in bondage and have him bound would be to dishonor the creative power which we call God. And how could this all work if we were in bondage? Because we are part of that process. We are part of God's creation because of our consciousness and our treatments, right? So, the seed of freedom must be planted in the innermost being of man, but like the prodigal son must come home. So we are prodigals. We are all prodigals, searching to know the truth of who and what we really are. We see abundance in the universe, don't we? It's incredible how abundant a universe we have. So why are some fearful, weak, poor? Science of mind deals with that through our treatments, through our prayer work, through our knowing that we are abundant beings. We are God individualized. So that is the challenge for us, to really, really get into and know what we are talking about and what we are doing, to take this teaching God serious. So the truth that Holmes talks about here points to freedom under law, the inherent nature of man forever seeking to express itself in terms of freedom and liberty. The great love of the universe must be one with the great law of its own being. And we approach love through the law. And this then is the teaching of science of mind. Love and law. As the law, the love of God is perfect, so too the law of God is perfect, and we can use it if we choose. And I, for one, choose each and every day to use it, to take this teaching to heart, because it is such an incredible teaching. What a gift Dr. Ernest Holmes has given to man, to us. He was a mystic. Many people recognized him as a mystic. He was honored by so many, many great teachers. And so he had great relationships with them all. So, the profound thought of all the ages has stood in awe of life itself, realizing that there is a power and possibility, the highest possibility of which man's intellect can fathom. And you want to know something wonderful? Good for us. The universe plays no favorites. No favorites. We are all the beloved in whom God is well pleased. So our lives are open to this teaching. We include this teaching in our lives. We go forth each and every day knowing the truth of who and what we are. So we approach it with awe and not fear, believing that the results of our efforts shall derive a great good, a sound understanding of the natural laws of life. The natures of law governed and directed by thought, always conscious that we live in a spiritual universe that God is in, through, around, and for us. There is nothing supernatural. It is just taking the time for us to know this teaching and to use it. And our lives will change. I know it changed my life. Along with my beloved bride. Now, it says, we know that many have been healed of physical disease through prayer. Why are some healed through prayer while others are not? Well, it must be God's fault, huh? He doesn't like me. No. Because it's superstition to believe that God recognizes some prayers and not others. But some people pray with intent, clarity, conviction, knowing that this prayer will be answered through our consciousness. Because the answer is in the prayer. A movement of thought within the mind of the one praying along a definite line of meditation for a specific purpose. And I realized I didn't put slide number 2 up. Oh, my gosh. Thank you, dear heart. You did. Well, so, could I have slide 3? Is it? I want to share quickly. I experienced, many of you know that my beloved bride, we spent 6 years with a terrible disease, and it finally took her away from me in 2018. But we were both powerful practitioners, and she was a wonderful minister, and we kept treating and knowing the truth and declaring the truth. But then about 2 months before she made her transition, she started talking about our daughter Alex, who was killed by a drunk driver, which led her to become a minister. And she started saying, I really want to be with Alex. I really want to be with Alex. And I was treating perfect whole healing. She was saying, I want to be with Alex. Well, you know what happened. Her prayer was answered. And mine pissed me off. Because she left me. So, again, a prayer, a movement of thought within the mind. What is the mind? Well, we're blessed to have Amy Roberts, who is going to talk about that. So, I will get off stage, and you can get rid of what I have there. And thank you. Blessings.
My name is Amy Roberts. I'm a licensed spiritual practitioner at the Center for Spiritual Living, Chico, and I cannot be with you today because I'm in Vernonia, Oregon at Camp Cedar Ridge with the teens. Today I'm going to present to you my portion of the thing itself. What is Dr. Ernest Holmes talking about when he talks about two minds? He's talking about the subjective mind and the objective mind. The subjective mind is the creative field. It's that place, that thing that knows how and what. It's the creative medium. It's the law. The objective mind is conscious thought, the human mind. They are two parts of the whole. How do they work together? The objective mind directs the subjective mind. Your conscious thought tells the subjective mind what to do, what to produce, what to manufacture, what to make manifest. You have choice over your conscious thought, over your objective mind. You choose what to think, how often to think it, when you think it, where you think it, and why you think it. The subjective mind is obedient. It only knows what to do when you tell it what you want. How is it that we have limitless power? It's because we're part of the whole. Our subjective mind is part of the entire subjective consciousness, is part of the subjective mind. Think of the quote by the 13th century Persian poet Rumi. You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the entire ocean in a drop. Your subjective mind is a drop of that entire subjective mind, the collective consciousness. And in that, your subjective mind has all the power. All thought is creative. Everything you think is being heard by the subjective mind. The subjective mind, being obedient, acts on your thoughts, manufactures, manifests, and produces everything you think. It does it with great specificity. It gives you exactly what you think. Ernest Holmes says, life is a mirror and will reflect back to the thinker what he thinks into it. So what are you thinking?
I'm thinking that was pretty good, right? Okay. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to use this guy, I think. So the thing itself, why would Dr. Holmes call it the thing itself? It's really brilliant. I look over at the candles, there's 10 different teachings, right? When I was a kid, I thought God was some old man sitting up in a chair. Dr. Holmes looks at this and says, it's everything. It's not male. That would be limiting. It's not female. That would be limiting. It's not this. It's not that. It's the thing itself. It's everything. And so to me, that's kind of brilliant. Now, one of the things, this isn't actually part of the part that I had, but I love this particular sentence, the beginning of it especially. Experience has taught us that the subjective tendency, no, that's not actually the first one. I think, there we are, thank you. This does not require an unusual degree of intelligence. Now that I can relate to, okay? But rather the practical application. Now, he talks about practical application all the time through this book. This book is about doing. It's about testing. It's about taking these different principles and laws and putting them to work. Practical application of what we now know in order that we may increase our knowledge and constantly expand. So you can go to the next one now. So with that, you don't need to be all that intelligent. No, the other one. Sorry. There we are. So then he lays this on you. Okay, experience has taught us that the subjective tendency of this intelligent law of creative force may be consciously directed and definitely used. This is the greatest discovery of all time. Doesn't require any intelligence, right? So what I want to do is I want to just break this down a little bit, okay? So let's talk about first. Experience has taught us that the subjective tendency of this intelligent law of creative force. Now, Amy talked about the subjective mind. In my other life, I do a lot of workshops, okay? And we have, we'll put managers through a series of 3 weeks, 1 day a week for 3 weeks. And they come in and they check out the room, and they go and they pick a seat and they sit down in that seat. What do you think happens the next week? They all pick the same seat. They can't remember what we talked about, but they know their seat. I think of that kind of how I think that tends to work a lot with your conscious mind and subconscious. But I want to talk about the subjective part, because the subjective is also very, very interesting. And I taught Fun Day School for a lot of years. And in Fun Day School, and I think it's the best way to understand this, you have the seed, you have the soil, and then you have the plant, right? Very simple. The seed goes into the soil. The soil is rich with nutrients, hopefully. And what happens to that seed? It bursts open, it sprouts, and it's got all these little roots, and then it's got a beautiful plant, and depending upon that soil. But that soil is the subjective mind, the seed being the thought. So the thought is put into the subjective mind, and then it grows and manifests into whatever it is that we are working on. That's, for me, that's the easiest way for me to understand the subjective mind, because what it is that seed is subject to it. Okay? So with that in mind, then you take the consciously directed, and then my example of the seating and how people, when they come in, they pick a seat, but then all of a sudden they automatically sit in the same seat. Well, I think that our conscious mind has 2 parts, and go ahead and hit that slide. Yeah, okay. So you see, the conscious mind has a couple of parts, and this is important. 5% logical thinking, short-term memory. It's like where we are right now, hopefully, if you're paying any attention at all. I'm hoping that you're there. So that's where we're conscious right now. But then a lot of things end up in the subconscious. The subconscious is a big help to us. This conscious mind does like 5 to 9 things simultaneously. And I'm probably more towards the 5, I think. But the subconscious mind does 20,000 bits of information simultaneously. Very powerful. We need that, don't we? Yeah, because, I mean, when I get up in the morning, I have a routine. I don't really even think about it. I'm behind my desk at work, and I'm like, how did that happen? But, it's just a lot of things happen, and it's really powerful. The issue comes, however, when something gets into that subconscious that doesn't serve us real well. You see, it really wants to help out, and it pulls these things and says, okay, that, that's good. And then maybe we have a breakup, and maybe how we handled it, and some of those issues and some of the feelings that we had of not being enough or whatever it might be gets into that subconscious mind. So then something like that happens again, and then it pops up, and it becomes a train of thought, a way of handling things, a way of being. So much of what we teach is to identify those things. And so could I have that next slide? The conscious mind, even though it only does 5 to 9 things at one time, it's actually the one that's most powerful. Why? Because, it's the gatekeeper. It's the one that can change. It's the one that can create change. It's the one that's feeding the sub, right? And so the subconscious mind more powerful than more powerful than the subconscious mind, because it has the power to change our thinking. And this is what leads us to freedom. You see, the road to freedom is not mysterious. This is what leads us to freedom. It's not freedom from, because we create all kinds of stuff that maybe we don't like, and we experience things that come into our awareness that maybe we don't care for. We may, hatred and violence and all kinds of different things. But what we are given is the freedom to make change. That's what he's promising us. One more slide. Is there another one? Yeah. Okay. Learning to trust will make us happy. There's a power in the universe that honors our faith in it. Honors our faith in it. How does that work? What does he mean by it honors our faith? Yeah. And does anybody here have faith that stays exactly the same all the time? Kind of goes up and down for me, right? And so that's another way for me to identify where I need to do my work sometimes. Honors the faith in it. There's a law in the universe which exacts the uttermost farthing. And that is very important in that word, because otherwise it means something very different. So I'm not knowing what farthing was, I learned that it means minuscule or very small amount. And so Amy brought it up too, is that it's an exact reflection of our thinking. All the littlest thoughts, everything. It's an exact replica. It has to be, because it's a law, it's a principle, it's the way that it works. When we learn to trust the universe, we shall be happy and prosper, and we shall be well. And trusting the universe, that whole faith thing and trusting the universe, if you're reading the, what's the book that we're on, right? This Thing Called You. I get it confused with another one. This Thing Called You, he actually goes into how to build your faith. It's great, piece by piece, because if you're having trouble in that area, or maybe you're on a downslope of the ride that you may be on, he talks about actual practical ways of building your faith. And with that, I've gone pretty far over my time. So I am going to say thank you very much, and God bless you on your journey.